One of the passages for this Sunday from the prophets is from Prophet Habakkuk. I'm going to read a few verses. It's on page 871 in the Old Testament section of our Bibles. And as I said, it's part of the readings for this Sunday, although it's not in our program, but it's a passage that I'm going to read for our meditation this morning. Habakkuk chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, and then I'm going to read also chapter 2. It's on page 871 of the Old Testament. The oracle that the prophet Habakkuk saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help and you will not listen? Or cry to you violence and you will not save? Why do you make me see wrongdoings and look at trouble? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law becomes slack and justice never prevails. The wicked surround the righteous. Therefore, judgment comes forth perverted. Then next page is in chapter 2. Also, I'm going to read verses 1 through 4. I will stand at my watchpost and station myself on the rampart. I will keep watch to see what he will say to me and what he will answer concerning my complaint. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that a runner may read it. For there is still a vision for the appointed time. It speaks of the end and does not lie. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Look at the proud. Their spirit is not right in them, but the righteous live by their faith. Till verse 4. I don't know how much you read or you watch the news. And how do you react to the news? Do you get angry sometimes? Are you sometimes perturbed because things didn't seem right? Things are not doing so well. What do you do when that happens? What do you do with this anger or this, let's say, being, not pleasant with things how they are? Well, Habakkuk seems to be watching the news. Here's the oracle of the prophet, and it's interesting that it is introduced to us as the oracle that the prophet saw. Well, I would expect the next verse would show us some vision of the prophet, what he saw and what he heard from God. Well, he doesn't tell us. But what we see next in verse 2 is a prayer. He prays. And this prayer is very typical of what we call the lament. We just read a while ago a text from Lamentations. It's another prophet that would lament with God. He would pray with God, and he was troubled by what was happening during his time. Well, here Habakkuk is actually few few decades before Jeremiah. Okay, Jeremiah is the writer of Lamentations. So what Habakkuk saw is happening during the time of Jeremiah, and Jeremiah sees or lives through all those troubles that God speaks here about in Habakkuk. And so his prayers is how long, and then why. This language we see in the book of Psalms frequently, because Psalms are prayers, and they're prayers of lament, prayers of complaint. Actually, here it's called in our Bibles here the prophet's complaint, or the prophet's lament. And you say, well, should we complain to God about anything? Shouldn't we be thankful to God? Yes. Sometimes the prophets and the psalmist would complain with God about something. And he says, how long shall I cry for help and you will not listen? Or cry to you violence and you will not save? Seems like he's saying, God is being too slow. Lord, I'm telling you, there's a lot of destruction, violence, and he is there and you don't do anything. We can sort of picture the prophet, talking to God, sort of like this. But it seems like there are two problems that makes him angry. One is violence itself. What's going on? Later, and then he talks about destruction, violence, strife, contention. Well, that's one problem. I would say he is perturbed for a second problem, second reason. Why do you make me see wrongdoing and look at trouble? It's almost like, why do I have to see this? There's a lot of destruction. I wish I didn't have to see it. I wish I couldn't see it. I wish I could turn off the TV or, not read the news. And he's asking, Lord, why do you make me see all these things? I wish I didn't have so much sense of justice or things that should be right, because then I could watch the news or read the news and not be bothered about it. It'd be so great. The prophet is bothered by what he sees. And more, he's bothered that he actually have to see that. It could be a way of saying, okay, why is this happening? It shows someone who is in trouble. Let's say a crisis. He becomes even a little bit angry. Or let's say it's typically is someone who has a sense of what's right and wrong, and he sees things that doesn't make him very happy, and it seems like life goes on, nothing changed. The Lord is not doing anything about that. So he prays to God. I'll say that, how do we deal with situations like this? How do we deal with let's say, our crisis? Maybe not in that similar way, even our, personal, more particular crisis, but anyway, how do we deal with situations where we are troubled by something? One thing we can learn from the prophet is he goes to God and pray. And he's actually very open in his prayer. He speaks about his anger. We probably we probably would, we might even rebuke somebody if today, if the person prayed like some of the prophets pray, or the psalmists. Um, you know, I cried to you and you were not saved. You know, he's almost accusing God. The wicked surround the righteous, therefore judgment comes forth perverted, and so on. He's basically blaming God for all this, right? God is not doing anything. Well, how do we deal with our troubles? Yes, one good step is go to God in prayer. Every crisis we go through, we go through some stages. I don't know if you're familiar with that idea that has become very popular, the 5 stages of grief, that was developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she uh, developed this after helping a lot of patients that were going through cancer, and she was able to identify different attitudes or emotions or feelings that the patient went through, and she came up with 5 stages, or actually 5 reactions, I would say. It's not exactly stage that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You go from one, and then you the next step, and then the next. I mean, she says that sometimes you go back to the previous one. Anyway, 5 typical reactions, or it's called 5 stages of grief. And today it's applied to many situations, but initially it was the reactions of people that went through cancer or some other disease. She says that the first typical reaction is denial. Person says, no, not with me. This will, oh, I'm just going to the hospital and doing some tests and so on, but it's all going to be fine. Then it's anger. Why me? It can't be happening. Then she calls bargaining. God, if I go through this, I will serve you. I'll dedicate my life to you. If I can live a few more years, I will do this or that. Start bargaining with God. Then comes depression. The person really struggles with, not only the consequences of the treatment, but the uh, possibility that really life is going to be cut short. And finally, acceptance. This is it. Well, when I look at this text of Habakkuk, I see some traces of this. Of course, not all these 5 stages. Actually, here at first, there's no denial. There's a recognition that there's trouble, there's violence. I'll say maybe he goes to the denial and further down. But the first thing he does is he goes to God. And he says, I'm not happy with what I see. I'm actually feeling like you make me see things that I didn't want to see. And there's actually maybe a play in words here, because he goes to God and says, "Why do you make me see it? Why do I have to see this?" And when the Lord responds in verse 5, the Lord uses the same 2 verbs, and it says, "Look at the nations, see, be astonished, be astounded." It's almost Lord telling like this: yes, you're seeing, but you're not seeing enough. You're not looking far away far enough. You're just focusing on one particular situations. Well, actually, he goes to God, but it's like the Lord didn't help. Make him even more angry. Because what does the Lord say to him? Yes, I know. I'm not unaware. I know what's going on. I'm already preparing something. You don't see it, but I see. I know what I'm doing. You didn't see it yet. So it's like Habakkuk is looking at the problems, the troubles of the society. The Lord is saying, look out there. Let me show you what's happening. I'm doing something. You don't see it, but I am doing something. Now, what the Lord is doing doesn't comfort Habakkuk. On the contrary, he gets even more angry. The Lord says, you see, verse 6, I'm rousing the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, that fierce and impetuous nation who marched through the breadth of the earth to seize dwellings not their own. God is saying, falling to Habakkuk, things are not good here. Wait, I'll take care of this. I'm bringing a nation that's going to come and destroy everything. I guess the best comparison we could make is like this: Are we perturbed by corruption, injustice? So, do we think that our leadership is not doing a good job? Is like God would say, "Don't worry, I'll take care. I'll bring ISIS here and come and destroy these people." How would be your reaction? Said, no, Lord, it's not that much. I mean, yeah, we're fine with our people here. We're fine with our, violence and corruption. We don't want any ISIS or any foreign nation coming and destroying us. Well, this is basically what the Lord is telling Habakkuk. He says, are things so bad like this? Well, don't worry. I am doing something. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm bringing the Babylonians to come and they're going to destroy all these people. It's all going to be fine. Habakkuk goes to God. Again, verse 12, he recognizes, are you not from of old, O Lord, my God, my Holy One? You shall not die. He recognizes the Lord is eternal. But, and he says, you have marked them for judgment, and you, O rock, have established them for punishment. But look at what he says. Again, he uses the same two verbs. See, look, see, behold. Verse 13. Your eyes are too pure to behold evil, and you cannot look on wrongdoings. Why do you look on the treacherous and are silent when the wicked shouts? He says, Lord, you don't see it. I'm sorry to say, you're too holy. You're the one that is, lives forever. You don't see what I see. It's not possible that you can see the violence, the injustice, and so on. You're pure. You're too pure to see it. Well, what's the Lord's answer? And then we come to chapter 2. So I'll say the first thing the prophet teaches us is that when we're in trouble, we have to go to the Lord. and speak to him openly, even when we are angry. Well, the second thing, and I think this will be even clearer in chapter 2, is we have to keep watch and accept what the Lord is doing. And this is what what the prophet ends up doing. Chapter 2, verse 1. He says, "Okay, I don't get it. I don't see what the Lord is doing, but I'll do one thing. I will stand at my watch post and station myself on the rampart. I will keep watch to see." Look at the verb "see" again. To see what he will say to me and what he will answer concerning my complaint. I'll say this is a sort of like a resignation, or it's the beginning of acceptance, if we think of those 5 stages. It's like, okay, I don't understand, I don't see it, I don't agree, but I'll stay watching what the Lord is going to do and what the Lord is going to say. And what is the answer to my complaint? And the Lord answers. The Lord answers, and he says in verse 2, chapter 2, "Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain on tablet, so that a runner may read it." All we can think here is of a billboard, right? Make it very public, this vision. I'm gonna show what I'm going to need to do. So I see Habakkuk going from anger to, watchfulness, to, let's say, some resignation, in a sense of, okay, can't do anything about this, but the Lord is certainly doing something. Let's see what the Lord is going to do. Let's see what he tells me. And the Lord eventually, when Habakkuk takes this stand of waiting and watching, now the Lord can speak. And he says, yes, I'm going to give you a vision. And the vision is, look at the proud, their spirit is not right in them, but the righteous live by their faith. Or we can read it, by their faithfulness. So and then he moves on to say other things, but basically saying that he will condemn the proud, the unrighteous, the evil, and he will bless the righteous. The righteous live by their faith, by their faithfulness. Chapter 3 is actually a larger hymn, and when we come to verse 16, I'll read the last few verses of chapter 3 of Habakkuk. We have, I hear and I tremble within my lips, quiver at their sound. Rottenness enter into my bones, and my steps tremble beneath me. I wait quietly for the day of calamity to come upon the people who attack us. So he is already seeing the attacks. Now look at verse 17 and on, and how this reflects his reactions to what the Lord is doing. Though the fig tree does not blossom, and no fruit is on the vines, though the produce of the olive fails, and the fields yield no food, though the flock is cut off from the fold and there is no herd in the stalls. In other words, even if things are bad, our fields are destroyed, our flock are, killed and so on. Even if all this is happening, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will exult in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer and makes me tread upon the heights. Can you see the difference from the first chapter to the last chapter? How Habakkuk seems to be accepting more the situation. Things are not good yet. Things can be, total chaos. But yet I will rejoice in the Lord because He's my strength. He's my salvation and He sustains me. The vision that the Lord gives Habakkuk is that, yes, the proud will be destroyed and the righteous will live and will be saved. The letter to the Hebrews in the New Testament quotes this passage. Actually, Paul also quotes twice this passage from Habakkuk, but in Hebrews chapter 10, he also mentions this, and I think very appropriately. And he says, chapter 10, verse 36, for you need endurance so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what was promised. For yet in a very little while, the one who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one will live by faith. My soul takes no pleasure in anyone who shrinks back. We're not among those who shrink back and so are lost, but among those who have faith and so are saved. Perhaps the Hebrews in the New Testament were going through something similar, and they were also almost abandoning faith and hope. And the writer says, do not abandon that confidence of yours. And he exhorts them to believe and to trust in the Lord. Well, we go through hard times as people, as nation, in our world. There are many that are suffering, and not in the same way as the times of Habakkuk or Jeremiah, but we go through many times of struggles. And as Habakkuk, we can go to God in prayer and express our anger to God, but also move on to acceptance and be open to what the Lord has to say. Be open to what the Lord is doing that we cannot see exactly. May the Lord bless us. Amen.